Well, hello there and greetings, everyone. I need to clean my desk, it's a mess. Today we're going to look at something someone brought up, and we were talking about Linux desktop markets here in a live stream. This video is not about me and my ugly face. It's about the Linux markets here. I already made a video about the desktop markets here, and people come in, what about gaming? What about gaming? If it's big in gaming, it must be big in the desktop, and etc., etc., etc. Well, let's look into that today. As I always say, watch the video to the end. You can't judge a book by its cover and all that thing. I have too many people just commenting because of the thumbnail or the title and their concerns and what they're saying. I am also saying later in the video, and it just, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but it makes it just look a little bit foolish, okay? So do yourself a favor and people reading your comments a favor. Watch the video to the end before you say anything. And if you don't do that, fair be with. I can't stand listening to myself for more than 2 seconds anyway. Just don't comment, okay? Because you really don't have much to bring to that conversation. I hate that I have to say this in a lot of videos, but it's the nature of emotional driven people, I guess. At the end, if you watched it to the end, or if you don't, if you like to, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, down, hit the like button, hit the dislike button, hit the subscribe button, go onto my Discord and recommend something you want to see on the channel. Whatever do you want to see, go on my Discord, and if it's I have a suggestion tab or room, and if it makes sense, there's a 99% chance I will make it. Maybe not the day after, but within like a week or so, especially now, or at least a month, I will either do it in a live stream or make a dedicated video. So a lot of the videos I make is community driven. It's you, the viewer, that say, can you talk about this? And I do. So long ass intro out. Probably already angry with a lot of people here. I'm looking right now with you at the Steam hardware and software survey from April. I think this is the latest one. We are actually almost at the end of May. So I don't know why we can't. Well, apparently they have not updated it yet. So we can see here the most popular OS version, Windows 11. 24-bit. It's 67.74% of the desktop market share for gamers. Okay? So we look at the stats, and I will tell you what that means at the end. But right now, we're just looking at the stats. I would still have believed this would be Windows 11 because the outcry and the dislike for Windows 11, it almost sounded like it was a boyfriend that then went away with your sister and had a child with her and tried to weasel his way back into your life again. Yeah, it's not well received. Let me put it. I don't particularly like it in its native state. I do my own version of Windows 11. Have a live stream where you can look at that. 16 gigs of RAM. I get it with the RAM prices, but I would still think there would be a lot of people that have more than 16, like let's say 32, that they bought like years ago. But they probably do what I'm thinking about doing if you have excess RAM. Like I have 64 gig, even for video editing, for the stupid, crazy videos I do, that's too much. And I'm really debating on selling 32 of those. Because 32 gig is way enough for gaming, as you can see here. Productivity, I have 32 on my laptops for development and what have you not. Yeah, this is interesting. Maybe I should scroll. I can scroll more up. Speed, VRAM 8 gig is the biggest one. It's again super surprising. Primary, so people either go 1080 or dual 1080s. This is really interesting. Like 1440p has been a thing for years now. 4K is like becoming somewhat decent, but a lot of people must play competitive in gaming. The thing that we are most interesting in is the OS version. So let's expand. So let's put in here. Let's see. You can see like the indexes here. So Windows have 93.47 combined market share. So that's all the versions of Windows. And if you believe the gospel on the nerdy internet, we see all these, even big YouTubers now are making their gaming Linux, whatever it is. computer, small form factor, whatnot, and you see all the Linux community people go crazy mental about how great Linux is for gaming and whatnot. Windows is still 93.47% as of April, and I don't think this has moved a lot in a month. It's not like it will take away like 90% in a month. This is kind of like things like this. Market share when it comes to technology rarely has like and then it just drop down and a new one comes up. It's almost like, like boop. It almost goes like when one slowly falls down and one slowly goes up. And I'm not doing Chai Tea here, people. I'm just doing hand motions. Interesting. Again, I would have thought Windows would have been in the 80% side with all the hype that we are getting on YouTube with Linux gaming at the moment, and all these big YouTubers talking about it, and Valve and stuff like that. Maybe it's just my algorithm on YouTube that feed me more of that than you. Let me know down below. Another one that's actually surprising is macOS with a combined market share of 2.01%. I would expect this to be a fat zero. Man, not zero, but gaming on Mac sucks, okay? Even the way that they are trying. And I do believe that, at least with the M Series 5 chipset, they've done a really good job, but that's 5 generations into it. And it don't have the Proton that Linux has. So this is interesting. What you probably are more likely interested in to see is Linux. It's actually gone down from last month with almost 1%. And we are at 4.52% of the market share. This is like really interesting. Among gamers, Windows is king. And it's not even, like, look at the difference between Windows 11 and Windows 10. You see a lot of Windows users herping, be like, oh, Windows 10 is the way to go. Only 25% are using Windows 10. Even Windows 11 is winning in the gaming part of the Windows versions, which, if you believe the internet, should not be the case. And there's a few conclusions we can draw from that. If you take the Windows part, is that people don't hate Windows 11 as much as you think they do. I know that from a professional level. I have installed for companies Windows 11, worked at a company where they ran Windows 11 mostly. People didn't really fucking complain. They really did not complain. I also used my own ISO where I took a lot of the AI bullshit out of it and tweaked it so it was a little bit more optimized for a professional work setting. But they didn't care. Some of the computers ran Windows 10, they had like 2 or 3, and then like 10, 15, 20 running Windows 11, and I had no complaint. I have friends and family members run Windows 11, no complaint. Windows 11 is not that hated as you think it is. That's one of the conclusions we come. At least now you see that with gamers, because a lot of Linux users will let you think, and a lot of big content creators will let you think now that Windows 11 is so bad for gaming that they're moving to Linux. And yes, this is like a month behind. It's not going to drop off a cliff for next month. I will eat my underwear if that happens. What do we know about this with Linux? Well, if Linux was this great gaming platform, it would be bigger. If Linux is the savior for gamers, it will be way bigger. Why is it only 4%? Well, there is a hint here, and it's one of Linux's biggest Achilles heels. Look, what are the specs you're looking at here? When you look at the other specs, 16 gigs of RAM. Not super hard clock speed. It's not going ham. The most used video card is a 3060 with an 8 gig of RAM, and the resolution is 1080. What does this data tell you? Competitive shooters or MOBAs and stuff like that. So high refresh rate driven, low resource demanding, competitive gaming. Why is that not that good for Linux anti-cheat? That's it. Apparently, most people And you can also see that on the most played games and stuff like that. But most people right now in today's world, and this is actually surprising me to some degree, to be honest, most gamers nowadays, they don't sit and play Crimson Desert as I'm addicted to right now. They probably do, but the vast majority of them are playing hero shooters, competitive shooters. Like, they are super resource efficient and run at a high refresh rate, and online, but they require anti-cheat. And they are working on getting it to work better on Linux, and I hope they do, don't get me wrong. But even there, I don't think it will matter. I really don't think it will matter. But Linux is not that big, and what does that mean for the desktop market share? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, there's a big gamers." Like, it's a marginally bigger among gamers than it is your average human consumer. But there's also less gamers than your average consumer using a computer, desktop, laptop. Like, gamers, I think the biggest market for gaming are handheld, followed by consoles, and then desktop computing, laptops, and desktops. So we are like a really, really small niche within a small niche of the total computer use when you're talking gamers, okay? And among that really, really small niche within a small niche, Linux is an even smaller niche or part of that. And there are some technical reasons for that. There are some games that just don't work on Linux. I have a problem with that myself. There are some games that runs better on Windows. I have experienced that myself. There's also games run better on Linux. I've experienced that myself also. I know the retro gaming community love Linux. That's why I say Mac OS is really good for retro. So a lot of people that don't want to deal with Linux, they get Mac if they're a retro gamer. Retro gaming is amazing on Linux. RetroArch and Arc and all these. Even if you're running older Windows games, like, Skyrim and the older Fallouts and the older Elder Scrolls, they tend to run really, really well on the Proton, on the Linux versus on the Windows. But there's also a lot of people that don't play them, and we see that here in the specs there. This screams, if you look at the computer specs down here, this screams competitive shooter. It could also be, this screams retro gaming. But you don't need a 1060 for retro game, or a 3060. You could do it with a 1060 or non-RTX graphic card. But yeah, competitive shoot. There's also more and more hero shooters out. You see, like, Sony flopping with trying to make theirs and whatnot. But what you should take away from this is, and I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, and you can hate me for this, and you could say, oh, blah, 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 this is the numbers. Go look at StatCounter, and look at the worldwide desktop use, and see what they don't look at America, or India, or Denmark, or Germany. Look at, because that only gives you localized, that only gives you in this country, even with France moving to desktop Linux, as they say they will. Let's see if that even happens. Because there's many EU countries that try to move to Linux, and they partially stick with Linux, and then they move back to Windows because a lot of the software they want to use could not keep up, and they lose money and time and efficiency. It's a whole video in of itself. But even, let's say, if France went totally open source and desktop, it would not mean much for the desktop market. The French government don't have that many computers. They don't have that many employees. Like, it's not the biggest corporation in quotes with the biggest employee count in France, okay? So it will barely mean anything. Germany, on the other hand, is a massive bureaucracy fucking state, so they will probably do a bigger impact. And they tried this a few times now and didn't succeed. Also, it turned out for Germany it was actually more expensive moving to Linux. Again, so Linux, as mighty as you think the penguin is, people don't give a fuck. To be blunt. They don't. If we are talking gamers, I can tell you why people don't give a fuck about Linux. Headset. Microphones. All of this have companion software. Lights. Peripherals. Yes, they work on Linux, but you're only getting like 50% of the experience. Maybe noise cancelling don't work. when I say noise cancel, I mean like when you're talking in the mic, because that's a software part and not a hardware part. Because it's cheaper to do it via software than doing it via hardware. All your fancy LEDs don't work, and then the Linux community is just like, just have a laptop or a virtual machine with Windows, and every time you want to change something, you boot that up and you plug that in, and you change and you plug it in. It's like so much hassle just to change your lights, okay? And people don't want to do that. And then there is like, well, people nowadays, especially like gamers and younger people, they love to be online. They love to live stream. They love to make content because everyone wants to be a YouTuber or Twitch streamer nowadays. And there's just not enough. As good as OBS is, they are using a lot of other companion apps to track their live streams, to track their data, to help them make a more highly produced live stream that is not available under Linux. It's barely available under Mac OS. The few tools that have all of this combined, like Streamlabs and stuff, that only works on Windows and Mac. They may come to Linux, who knows? So I do think what is holding Linux back is maybe not so much the anti-cheat as it just is software availability and hardware software support. Because if people want a Logitech headset, they're not buying a whatever brand because the Linux community say, well, this works 100% under Linux and you don't need the software. If people want a Logitech headset, they want a Logitech headset. If you want Air Jordans, you want Air Jordans, no matter how many knockoffs or alternatives I give you that are cheaper and better. If you want the Air Jordans, that's what you set your mind up to, that's what you like, you want the Air Jordans. And it's the biggest part I feel in the Linux community is misunderstanding the consumer. Because they think, well, there is alternative and some are better. If it don't matter. If someone wants something, if you really, really want this one here, Monster, Zero Sugar, Ultra Strawberry 3 bits, my guilty pleasure at the moment. There are other strawberry flavored, sugar-free energy drinks that taste 89% as good as this and are cheaper. But I want this one because it tastes the best to me. I want this one because I like it. And I also to some degree want it because it's Monster. And I do like the Monster chain, like the Monster brand. So if you come with like, oh, this alternative is like 50% and it's like 80-90% there, but I don't care. It's not this. Why would I, what's the word? Why would I be okay with lesser if I can get the experience I want? If I can afford it. If I had like really tight budget and I couldn't afford to get addicted to these monsters as I am, and you told me, well, you could save 50% or 80%, or not 80, 20% with this brand that is like 89% there, I would buy it. But I can afford these, and I want these, so I'm getting these. Even though right beside them is an alternative. And it's the same with software, hardware, games they run, how they want their software to be used. If people want Mac OS, you can't get them away from Mac OS. If people want Linux, you can't get them away from Linux. If you're one of those people that just like, our savior, Linus Torvalds, that's all you care about. No matter how much people sit and talk about Mac OS and Windows, you won't give a fuck. There's just more of those that say that about Windows and gaming and Windows and Mac on the overall desktop market. Because a lot of the other things that they also want, peripherals and stuff like that, software, are on those platforms. I do think if they get fixed the anti-cheat kind of thing, it will help Linux a little bit, but people don't change to Linux for gaming. People don't change to Linux for gaming. People don't change to Linux because Windows is acting up a little bit. Like, you don't throw your girlfriend out of the fucking window if she farts in your face one time by mistake, or if she has a little quirk that irritates you once a month or something like that. Because you will never find the perfect mate. You will never find the perfect OS. As a almost 30 years use of Linux, there's things that have irritated me with Linux since the 90s that still are irritation point today. So by that standard, because there's something that irritates me with Linux, I should throw it out the window. I just deal with it because I like Linux that much. And people deal with Windows because to them it's not that big of a problem. To them, they don't care. And you can't change those mindset. They have to come to that conclusion on their own. I know we all will live in the what ifs and the dream worlds and the unicorns and rainbows. This is it. What we are looking at here is it. Okay, peeps? Be realistic. And I know we want to root for the underdog, good old little Linux, and we want it to be big and all that stuff. This is the reality. As much as you like to break keyboard and yelling and screaming at me down below right now in the comment section, this is the reality of it. Stack counter is the one all the other Linux YouTubers use as a milestone and guideline. What the numbers are is what the numbers is. Is this perfect? No, but it's the closest thing to reliable data we have. So we have to use the closest thing to reliable data. And this is it. We can't hate it. We can't be angry about it. We can't be like, find excuses and copium, stiffing copium till we fall off our fucking chairs. This is just how it is. Deal with it. I wish I was handsome. I wish, I had $1 billion. I wish and wish and wish, but it's not reality. We have to live in reality. And it don't help to bitch and moan and yell and scream and point fingers and blame. Won't help anyone. All you're doing is just driving people away. Because the Windows 11 thing is still what the fuck's going on there? It's up by almost 1% since last month. So people must really, really like Windows 11 now. Take this in as it is. That even among gamers, Linux don't matter that much. That don't mean it don't matter for you. That don't mean you can't be happy with it. That don't mean you want to desanitize proprietary software from your life, which is totally up to you. But this is the facts. Or the closest to the facts we can come. Anything else is wishful thinking. This is the world we live by. Can it change? It probably will. It probably won't. We don't know. Linux on the overall desktop is under 3%. Linux for gaming is a little bit better. It's under 5%. Fall from last month, apparently. Almost 1%. So it's been over 5%, apparently. Windows is up by 1.14, which was kind of correlate with the loss of Mac and Linux markets here. Why that is, I don't know. But this is what we get. See you all later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.